Now that you've completed step 1, upgrading your social media image, let's take everything you've learned about yourself and your accomplishments and put it into your infographic resume. I'm Christine Kroll, and let's get started with step 2.
Let's get started with some questions. Learners often ask me, do I really need more than one resume? Well, my answer is yes. That's why I've created this unit. Traditional resumes are important for traditional job fields such as attorneys, CPAs, accountants, and also for large organizations that may use application scanners. And those scanners actually go through and look for keywords about your education, your GPA, your experience, all of the things that they're looking for to match their job description. What I'd like you to think about as we go through this course is creating not only a traditional resume, but also a blended resume. A blended resume will simply put a few highlights, maybe a couple infographic elements into your resume, because about 49%, almost half of jobs have only 50 or fewer applicants. I've been on many search committees, hired quite a few people, and when you have 50 or less applicants, you really have the time to look at each and every one. And when you're doing it something that stands out, it just has a little bit something different than everybody else, can actually make you pause more than that 30 seconds or so that's often quoted that recruiters look at a resume. Finally, infographic resumes. Okay, yes, they are for people in creative fields, graphic designers, artists, but it goes beyond that. Really, the key to getting hired is networking, and to get a new job or a promotion, you need to know people, you need to meet people, and what better way than ending a really great conversation that you've had or going in and talking to your boss than with something different, with an infographic resume, something that's really going to spotlight what you're doing, but in a way that probably nobody else in your office is taking the time to do. Finally, if you've used a traditional resume or a blended resume to get an interview, I've found that most people end an interview by handing me the very resume that got them the interview. And while that's great, and it is really a nice reference point, I typically have that with me. So when you think about it, ending the interview with an infographic resume will differentiate you from other people applying for that job. So now you're a little worried, can I really create an infographic resume? I'm not a graphic artist. I'm not a computer specialist. Yes. So having completed step 1 of the course, like I said, you've already inventoried what's important to you, what your accomplishments are. You already have identified everything that would go on your resume. The team and I have created 8 resume templates that will guide you through the process of moving from a traditional to an infographic resume. And if you don't like what we've put together, everybody has their own style. Although we'll help you customize it, you can always use templates within Microsoft Word. You can look on Google, OpenOffice, Google Docs. There's all kinds of different products that you can use that supply templates, and you can add in your own infographic elements by going through the stages of customizing our templates. So I thought what was really important was, what do recruiters and employers want? Who are we creating these resumes for? Well, I went to all of these surveys, I've listed them, I've included them in our unit, and I've looked at the research, and I've come up with a few things for you that jump out. Where are the job opportunities? Well, interestingly, as I've mentioned several times already, it's through networking. So I want you to think globally. I want you to look all around you, anywhere that you can reach with your social media networks and in person, but I want you to act locally. I want you to be prepared to seek out opportunities. I want you to ask family. I want you to ask friends. I want you to network in your own office where you are now or out of your organization. If you don't have a job, it's just as important to network with people who do have jobs. Volunteer, intern, all of these things make a major impact. You can get hired by proving yourself before you've gotten a formal offer. Now we move on to the things that most people think of: LinkedIn, job fairs, college fairs. All of them work. But when I looked through the surveys from the recruiters, the most current statistics show that all of those things are actually far lower than referrals, people that you know. So I popped out just a few statistics to help you think about this before you create your resume. One of the things that I think is really interesting that a lot of people don't think about is turnover. Do you know that 30% of recruiters report the average employee tenure, the time that they stay in a job, is only 1 to 3 years? And then another 29%, so that's 60%, another 29% report 4 to 6 years. So there's actually quite a bit of recruiter burnout. There's so many jobs to fill. People are constantly leaving and moving on to other organizations. So we look at that as an opportunity. Also, networking. This is really going to be the key of everything throughout this course. Recruiters report that 78% of their effective candidates come from referrals, while another 56% come from social and professional networks. So getting out there, meeting people, not only knowing people socially, but also going to some professional networking events. They're held all of the time, especially if you're interested in a specific field and you have some entry-level skills, that's where you're going to want to go. Also, intern to hire programs. These are critical. If you are a college student and you are listening to this right now, go to your department and find out if they have an internship program. Many of them don't, but if you express some interest, they may be able to help put you in the field and give you a chance at showing who you are before you ever even enter the real job market. Now, having said all of that, 46% of these effective candidates are coming from direct applications, which are resumes, which is what we're focused on in this course. So you are the center of all of this. And when we look at this, recruiters say that face-to-face interviews are critical. 96% of the time, that is what gets the job. But they also cite resumes as 93% of the time what gets people in the door. It's really important that you have a resume that makes you stand out. And I really thought this was very interesting and wanted to call to your attention that 87% of them, almost as many that cite resumes and face-to-face interviews, and industry knowledge at 85%. 87% cite enthusiasm as something that left a lasting impact from a candidate that they spent time with, along with 79% saying conversation skills. I find that mind-blowing when I look at the things that you would typically think, industry knowledge being the number one. And it's not to say that that's not important. It is important. But really think about your level of enthusiasm, your conversation skills. Those are all things you can work on and all things that you can build. I also took a look at this LinkedIn Global Recruiting Trends report, its annual report, and internal recruiting. So if you're already employed right now, only 29% cited recruiting internal candidates as a top priority, and only 32% cite employee retention as a priority. When you think about that statistic and you think about the fact that they're not actively looking within their own ranks to promote you or to move you into a different job, that's something that's an opportunity for you, because if they're not actively seeking it out, you could be one of the few that step forward. So I want you to think about that when you're crafting your resumes. Promotions, getting promoted. It's an ad hoc process. 31% report that being an ad hoc process, meaning there's really no rhyme or reason to it. While 24% report a well-defined program for advancement, that means 76% do not have a well-defined program for advancement. And 12% cite having a well-defined program for lateral moves. But again, most people do not have any program defined for that. Lateral moves can actually put you in a position in another department that, might fit better with what you're looking for, and you could then rise the ranks that way. So we don't ever want to lose sight of the importance of promotions. Trends. Okay, so looking through all of these reports, there's a lot of trends going on, but time and time again, referrals came out at the top of the list, actually moving up the list more quickly than many of the other things that they look to. They're just now starting to think about employee referral programs and starting to think about these internal networks that they could build and cultivate their own employees. They're really starting to put time into social media. People say, oh, they always look at social media, and they do, but now they're starting to really comb through social media and look through people who have themselves described as certain jobs. So it's really important what you did in step one. That's really going to help you. And one of the actual big trends that it's kind of looking at it from the other side is employer brand. So many of these companies are trying to brand themselves as a really great place to work so that when they are trying to recruit, they have a better opportunity to get the best candidates. Okay, so we've gone through all of the things that you need to think about while you're creating your resume. Now it's time to actually create your resume. So let's get started with our templates.